Yes, we can hear
So,
you.
hello everyone, my name is Temirlan. I'm Duke Kunshan University student. Uh, one moment. So, um, today I will. Today our session's plan is first overview of the interview with the university, its tips, usual problems, useful websites, and etc. The second one is my own experience, how it goes, and how to react in such different situations, and how to be yourself. It was my experience, so I will tell you some advices and how to react in the stressful situations. The third one is the interview from the interviewer's point of the review process, what is being assessed and why, applicants' responsibilities. And the last one is questionnaire with Temirlan and Russell. So the first one is overview in the interview, how it usually goes. The first one, of course, is purpose of the interview. We have different purposes, but one of the most important part of our interview is to know more about prospective students by speaking face to face. Because some universities choose this type of interaction, like an interview, is to know more about personality of the prospective student. So they have to understand their action in front of others, and by asking questions they will know more about you. So you have to answer some questions from them, like what is your personality, what you do in your spare time, and likewise. So the second one is one of the important, is to truly understand your motives which led you to apply for university, and also examine your match with the university. This is one of the, as I said before, important part, because uh, universities know why you, uh, and this is the important, because as supplemental essays, you know that some universities ask question why this university. So this is like that, but you have to show them, you have to answer the question, but with more emotions, so they will know why you chose this university. And the second one is timing. It takes about 15-20 minutes long, so it depends. But my interview was 15 or 16 minutes, so it's not that long. The questions, uh, there are two type of questions. The first one, common question about students' life. So they can ask you a question about how would your friend describe you, why do you want to study these subjects, why do you like to do in your spare time. So you have to be prepared for this type of questions, so you answer quickly, because you have only 15 or 20 minutes. And the second one is specific schools questions. Of course, it depends on the school, on the university, so they can ask you different question. So you have to be prepared for this type of questions. So it can be why this university, why this major program, and etc. So next, this is my 5B for the interview. Of course, you have to be yourself, because interviewer want to know you, not someone else. So be yourself, speak as you speak in your real life. So just be honest. The second one, you don't have to lie, because you have to prove that this common application is your, so you didn't lie anywhere. So the third one is be connected. You have to find common language with your interviewer, so this will help you to understand not only your university, but also help interviewer to know about you. So the third one is be prepared, because as I said before, there are a lot of different questions that can be, so you have to speak quickly, so interviewer will know more about you, and this will help you to this will help you to have more chances to go to this university. And the last one, be confident. Um, this is just like a speaking in IELTS. you have to speak about yourself. As I said before, be honest, be connected, and be yourself. The next. So there are some websites that will help you to be prepared. The first one is Coach Interview Tips and Strategies. And there is one big website, Coach Essay Guy, that will help you to not only understand about interview, but also about uh, whole process applying to the US universities. And you will find some questions that will help you to um, analyze analyze interview. Why do colleges give interviews? Why colleges require interviews? Preparing for a college interview, and how to not sound like everyone else in your interview. And the second one is Coach Buy-in. Also will help you to understand more about interview. So you can find answers to what to bring to college interview, which top colleges require interviews, 50 majors, and so on. The second one uh, will help you to to prepare for some common questions, and I also use this um, website to be prepared for my Duke Kunshan interview. This is Prep Scholar, so you can also copy this um, link and use it in your interview. And the last one, specific college questions. As I said before, some colleges have their specific questions. So you can also find it in Quora and Reddit, because there are a lot of students who already applied to more to most of the universities. So um, they just post their question that was in the interview. So that were in the interview, so you can use it to be prepared. And additionally, you can find not only just interview questions, but also more about applying to the different majors, so they can help you to find your intended major in Quora specifically. This is my experience, what I did. The first one was registration, and Duke Kunshan University sent me email so I could register to the interview, but I couldn't because I was sick and I had a stomach ache. So I passed my deadline. So I have to. So I just send them email to the application. No, to the admission officer that I had a health issue. So could I take admission interview? So they just gave me a second chance to have an interview. So I had my interview, but after the deadline. The second one, so you have to take your every chance to have an interview, because this is one of the important way to show yourself and to answer some question that admission officer would have during the review of your application. So second one is preparation. I had only 3 hours. So first one, I read my application. I answered common question on Prep Scholar and specific questions on Reddit and Quora. For example, why Duke? And the last one, I prepared the interview place. So I just checked my Zoom outfit and prepared my table. So you have to be uh, like not beautiful, but prepared, and you have to wear something that will be comfortable and that will show that you are serious about this interview. The third one was interview questions. I answered some questions. One of them was, where did I hear about Duke? I answered that I heard about Duke from Russell Davis um, presentation about Duke. So this question connected us because we had something in common. We was in the one presentation. So the second one was what was my first impression. I said about green campus because it was something that is not only beautiful but also ecological. So I connected it with my activities because I'm very passionate about ecology. So this helped me to show that this application is mine. Which major did I choose? Uh, I said about that I chose applied mathematics and computational science because it helped me uh, to be prepared for my future career in robotics. So I also um, connected it with my activities and my future career. And alternatives, I said about psychology because my parents are psychologists. So it also helped me to connect it with my interviewer because Russell Davis is also graduated from psychology universities with psychology major. So this helped me to be connected with my interviewer. How will I maintain my AGT organization at the college? Uh, this also is my one of the activities is my AGT organization, Astana Green Tree. So I said that I can maintain my AGT organization through online platforms like a Zoom. So I could be a leader even uh, at other in university at university. Sorry. The last one. Which things are the most important to be a leader? I didn't remember that I said. I said that one of the important way to be a leader is to be connected with your team and find their good sides and try to connect with the proper work. The last one, questions to the university. Is it possible? You have to find good question to your university, which is connected with your activities and hobbies. So you can find best question that will help you understand what will help you to find more about your university. And I just asked a question that is associated with my researches about robotics. So I asked question, is it possible to work on researches with the associated professor? Because I found one of the best research in the GKA about robotics. So I asked this question, can I work with this research? Uh, would I be able to take the agreement to plant trees in green campus? This is why this was my next question. Um, could I plant trees and could I um, continue my hobbies and activities um, even in the university? So this agreement could help me to plant trees, uh, I guess, with my new teammates in the university and maybe found like um, AGT, like organization like AGT. So this will help me to also it helped me it helped it helped me to show that I'm the right person because Duke is also um, one of the universities that is very passionate about ecology. Would I be able to found a branch of my volunteering organization AGT and receive funds from the university? I ask this question because volunteering organization also I trying to found a branch even at the university because I have to make more bigger my organization and try to spread ecological um, behavior even at my university. So this also helped me to find a connection with DKA. As I said before, DKA is a passionate about ecology. So I guess that's all. But also you have to find questions that, as I said before, connected with your application and with your passion. So you have to like again, try to reread our website or try to read your application, why you, what you wrote in your specific supplemental essay. So this will help you to find the question that you want to have an answer. So I guess that's all from my side. Russell Davis.
Right. Do I have the ability to move the slides, or are you moving the
Yes.
slides? Okay. Well, hello, everyone. You do have a pretty unique opportunity here to get both perspectives, both sides of an interview. So you got to hear what it was like to be the candidate, and now you are going to get to hear from the interviewer, the actual person who did the interview, to get a little bit of a better understanding on why why did the interview go the way it did. I do want to make just a couple. I'll almost call these, we call them PSAs in the United States, public service announcement. And that is just a couple pieces of advice that I want to give everybody as they start the application process. The first one is, and Temirlan mentioned, we communicated with him via email. And one of the things I've been seeing happen more frequently is applicants are not checking their email maybe as regularly as they should. And so, I mean, I've got two teenage daughters. One's a senior in high school this year. I know email is not the way many young people communicate these days, but you need to make sure that you understand how universities are going to reach out to you. How are they going to ask for things? How are they going to let you know if something is missing? And in most cases, these universities are going to use email to do that. So if you don't have an email account, or maybe the email address you have is not professional enough, or maybe a little too inappropriate, set up an email, but have an email that you check regularly for things related to your application, because we're going to invite you to interview. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to learn that you didn't submit all of your financial aid documents, and so you are not considered for financial aid. These are really big, misses. And so, I just can't stress enough how important it is to check your email and check it regularly, once you start submitting applications. And the second one is, and Temirlan did a really good job of this, is just, if you have a question, ask. Most universities, maybe not all are going to be super responsive, but I think in many cases, if you have a question, if you need a little bit of extra time to get a document in, or as in Temirlan's case, you need a little extra time due to illness to get your interview, to do your interview, just ask. It's much better to ask than to just, hope or guess that maybe that'll be the case. So don't be afraid to reach out to admissions offices and ask a question if you're uncertain about something. So those are my two PSAs for this evening. So now what we're going to be doing is just going over various elements of the interview process, starting before the interview. I'm going to talk about, what are universities assessing? And, you have to keep in mind, I come from a particular university. My university, DKU, you see a lot, easier for people to pronounce, but it's Duke Kunshan University. That's our name. And, we have a pretty, specific things we're looking for. We're a unique international university based in China. And so we've got certain qualities we're looking for. And so keeping in mind, there's going to be a lot of things here, especially probably process related, that will be similar for a lot of universities and interviews. But, I am using my frame of reference, which is my particular university, which does look for very particular qualities in students. And so just, keeping in mind that that's my frame of reference. And so when I'm talking about why does DKU interview, it's very specific to our university. But again, a lot of this will translate or transfer to many universities more broadly. Why does DKU ask the questions it does? And why do we take a conversational approach to the interview, which not necessarily all universities are going to do? Is it okay to be nervous? And then, do all universities, as I mentioned, use conversational approach. And then your responsibilities, which I'm probably going to repeat again, checking your email. So go ahead and move to the next slide. All right. So getting to the interview from a process standpoint, once you hit submit, you are going to, be kind of thinking, okay, there's this black box now. I've sent them my application. What happens next? And so at Duke Kunshan University and many universities who do interview, you are going to have your application reviewed. And it is, in most cases, I think most universities do typically have 2 readers review that application. Now, some universities are so large or get so many applications, get so many applications that, sometimes they may hire what they call contract readers or seasonal readers who are just, these are typically experienced. Many of them have been doing it for many years. These will be just people who they only come on staff during the application review period. So they're reading the applications. And so, the admissions committee will get an overall view of the pool. And so, once they see who they have, like at DKU, next we will determine who do we want to interview. And then at that point, we extend our interview invitations. And so for us, we email, we're going to send you, and I should also say a lot of universities use different systems. You could refer to them as CRMs, customer relation management, but basically these are just communication systems that allow them to communicate directly and track those communications to the different applicants. And so, a lot of times schools will have something called a student portal, which will be where you are able to keep an eye on to check where, all the different actions on your part are kept track of. And so, what we'll do is we'll send you, in many universities, we'll send you an email saying, check your student portal for, determining whether or not you got an interview, if you've been invited to interview. I will also share something with you, that some students don't realize, is that a lot of these systems allow the universities to see if the email has been opened. So, that's really helpful to us, because sometimes we'll see, as I mentioned earlier, that a student hasn't opened their email. And so we're like, okay, well, we sent them an email to interview. So we may take the extra step and maybe reach out to them in some other way to make sure that they see that email. And so, some of the folks, I think, in Kazakhstan have probably received a WhatsApp message from me before, just saying, hey, this is Russell from DKU. I just want to tell you, make sure you check your email. But just be aware that, once you do open that email, a lot of these systems, we use something called Slate. Many universities use this same system, and it lets us know when somebody has opened the email. So the reason I'm telling you that is sometimes we get people who will say, I didn't get that email, or something like that. And the universities will be able to see, well, we sent this email on this date, and we can see that you opened it 3 times. So just be careful about what you tell, what you say. And that goes back to the being honest thing, I think, that Temirlan talked about in the interview. So we'll extend the interview invitation, and then you get to respond to the invitation. And, a lot of schools will use systems where you just go in, you select your time, your date, and then just make sure you follow the directions. Be very careful about, following the guidance that they're providing you. And of course, be there, show up on time, and we'll talk a little bit more about the actual interview. And again, if you're uncertain about anything, if you have a question about anything, ask. It's always better to ask. All right, next slide. All right. So what are the universities assessing? And universities are assessing several things, obviously. And Temirlan did a really good job of kind of highlighting certain things like being yourself, it's so important. But, since you're an international student and many of you are not, most of you, if any, are not native English speakers, and many of you may not even be studying in high schools, of course, that where English is the language of instruction. And so certainly an interview does allow the university to assess your English. And at DKU specifically, why this is even more important is because we don't require an IELTS or a TOEFL or a test for your English to demonstrate your English skills. We believe an interview is a much better tool to assess your language and your communication skills, right? Language skills is not just your ability to speak, but it's also your ability to listen. Because to be very candid, when you get into university, the most important language skill you will have is your ability to listen. Because if you're sitting in a classroom and you are not understanding what your professor is saying, if you're not understanding what your classmates are saying, that's going to be a huge obstacle and challenge for you and very stressful for you. So listening skills, and if we're talking about you having an IELTS or a TOEFL score, listening skills is going to be one of the scores within your overall score that gets the closest look. If that score is particularly low, even if your other scores are higher, that could be a cause for concern. Speaking will come, it'll get better once you're in an English speaking environment. Reading will get better, but listening, you have to have it at a really good level right at the beginning. So that's one of the specific things we may be looking at. And then communication beyond just speaking and listening, it's just the ability to have a conversation. And I know that sometimes you can be really stressed, and that's why our approach to interview, we do take such a conversational approach. We ask very basic and simple questions, and hopefully we get you relaxed, and so you can be who you are, and then have that nice conversation. When having a nice conversation with an applicant from an interviewer, from an admission officer's perspective, we feel really good coming out of that type of an interview, right? Our goal is to have a nice conversation with you. And so if you're able to smile, answer questions, and kind of with a nice back and forth, that's just a feel-good moment in the interview, and you get bonus points for just being able to have a nice conversation. And related to that are what we call interpersonal skills, or IP skills, and likability. One of the things that you are just I'll come back to that question. Yes, sorry. Do you mean how well you understand? Yes. By listening, I mean, do you understand the questions? Can you just understand what I'm saying? So it's understanding the question, and maybe I'm not asking a question, but we're talking, and are you understanding what I'm saying? That's what I mean by listening. Good communication to go, I think another point you bring up is, are you answering the question? And so that's a good point you bring up. So not only are you understanding the question, but then good communication is you're answering the question, because sometimes there are applicants I know that will have rehearsed answers. that will have stories they want to share or successes they want to share. And, it's kind of rehearsed maybe a little bit. Maybe they even have some notes. And so they might try to use an answer or a practiced answer or a story that they're really excited about. They might try to tell it when maybe it didn't really do the best job of answering the actual question that was asked. And so there's different elements here to listening and communication skills. Listening is simply understanding what is being said. So yes, it's understanding the question that's being asked. You're just understanding what I'm telling you. Everybody's understanding right now what I'm saying. That means you have good listening skills. Good communication skills takes it a little bit farther, and that is, are you actually answering the question that's being asked? And so a little bit of a distinction, I hope you understand there. Good question, good talking point there. And then, what are we assessing? Interpersonal skills, likability, kind of goes back to what I was just saying. Can we have a nice conversation with you? Are you somebody who is relaxed? Are you able to smile? Or, are you able to laugh? There's some other skills that I'll throw in there, things like self-awareness. Are you saying appropriate things? Obviously, you never want to use a cuss word in an interview, a swear word, a bad word. You want to use, appropriate language. And so self-awareness is making sure that you recognize that my context is I'm having an interview with an admissions officer. So yes, I want to be friendly. I want to be personable. I want to have a nice conversation, and maintain a certain level of professionalism. So that's what I call self-awareness, just understanding your situation. So that's just another kind of one of those, what I call interpersonal skills or soft skills. And then just likability. You could be interviewed by an admissions officer. You could be interviewed by an alum. You could be interviewed potentially, maybe even by current students from some universities. And, likability, especially if you're interviewing with an alum or maybe a current student, it's going to be even more important because they're going to be making a recommendation of whether or not they want you as a member of their community, as a member of their alumni community. So being likable definitely gets you, again, a little bit of bonus points. Filling in gaps, especially if you've got an admissions officer who's doing your interview, they are going to have seen your application. And sometimes they may have actually read your entire application. Other times, maybe they didn't read your application, but they may just scan it before the interview. But in any event, there will be times when the admissions officer is asking you some specific questions just to fill certain gaps. Maybe they had an uncertainty or a question that came up as a result of reviewing your application. So back to Temirlan's comment earlier, which is reread your application. Kind of try to, if possible, put yourself in the seat of the application reader, the admissions officer, and think about questions that they might have. One of the pieces of advice I always give when you're putting together your application is don't leave any questions for the admissions officer. If you say something and leave it open-ended, or, it prompts another question, it prompts the admissions officer to maybe want to know more, you want to try to avoid that in the application. But, in some cases, if there is a question, obviously, the admissions officer can seize that opportunity, the interview, to get more information related to what you may have shared in your application that left a question for them. Interest, interest and fit. I can't tell you, a university like my university and some of these other, more unique universities that are popping up around the world. There's, of course, Duke Kunshan, Duke's University's campus in China. Yale has an amazing campus in Singapore, Northwestern and Qatar, NYU and Abu Dhabi. I mean, there's a lot of great specialty universities in the US as well. who are really looking for certain students. They're looking for certain qualities in a student. And that's really that fit factor. And then interest, universities, especially those universities who might not be in the top 50 and the top 100, keeping in mind, as I know you all know, there are many great universities that might not be in the top 100, that are in the top 200, top 500, really great universities in the United States, that might not have that same confidence that anybody who gets admitted is probably going to take that offer. And so some universities are going to put value on interest, you demonstrating that you have a real interest in that university, that you have knowledge, and you demonstrate that interest by having knowledge of that university. So, for a university like mine and a university like many universities where they're looking to admit students who have an interest in that university, you have an opportunity to differentiate yourself in the interview. And one is to know university details, know specific things about that university. Temirlan, he knew great things about DKU. He knew about the green campus. He did his homework about the robotics activities and AI activities at DKU. And that demonstrates to the interviewer, to the admissions officer, that you've done your homework. And while we may not be your top choice, the fact that you did that homework and know specific details about the university, it says something, and it tells us that you understand who we are. And it's also allowed you to do a better job of telling your story, which again, Temirlan did. He understood the opportunities at DKU. He understood the strengths of DKU, and he connected his background, his interests to those things happening at DKU. That's what I call connecting your story to the university's story. And when you do that, it allows you as a candidate to highlight those things that are important to you. And at the same time, you're connecting your story, you're demonstrating your insight, and that you've done your homework about the university. So interest is important. So when I ask a question, like, tell me about the first thing, tell me what it was that initially attracted you to DKU, I'm giving you an opportunity to give me some insight, to give me some knowledge that you have. And I may dig even further. If you don't give me, something good, I may ask even more pointedly, what are the things that you're most excited about getting engaged in at DKU? Or what attracted you most, once you started to really do your research into the university, what excited you most? I am offering you the opportunity to give me information that you know about my university. And so when you come back with, I don't know, or there's so many things, and you don't give a specific answer, that says something to me. That says you don't really know a lot about us, or you didn't, and it can also say that you didn't even make the effort to do some homework before this interview, which means you're not that serious about us. Okay. And then when you do your homework, you also start to understand the university from a culture standpoint, as well as resources and curriculum. And so that's the fit factor, is the learning style the same kind of learning style you like? Is the culture the same type of culture that you thrive in? Does it have the majors that you are interested in? All of these things are demonstrations and reflections of fit, the university being the right fit for you. But fit is a two-way street. So you're demonstrating that the university is the right fit for you, and then we're going to be digging and asking questions to make sure that you're a good fit for our university. So two-way street there as it relates to fit. And then, as Temirlan already mentioned, are you the person in the application. You know, sometimes we'll read an application that is so amazing, you know, that we get really high expectations. We get really excited. I'll get really excited if I read an application of some applicant who just blew me away with their personality, with their achievements. And I'll be so excited and looking forward to interviewing them because I want to ask more about it, learn more about it. So make sure that, you know, when you make some big, bold statement or passion, or I did this, or I led this, or I started this, oftentimes I will dig into that. I'll want to know, what was the inspiration for you getting involved in that interest? What were some of the challenges you faced when you started that club? You know, I'm going to dig and ask. So make sure in your application, you know, that in the interview, you're that same person and you can give the backstory. You can give the inspiration. You can give the challenges. You can give the gratification, why you enjoy it so much, about those things that you talk about in your application. All right, next slide. So why does my university interview? And again, you know, a lot of this is going to translate to many different universities. And we talked about this already in many cases. But, you know, the first bullet point you'll see there is assess specific qualities. At DKU, in that spirit of fit, that assessing fit down at the bottom bullet point, we have very specific qualities that we look for. You know, we are a pretty unique educational institution with a very unique learning culture and community. And so we look for qualities like a global outlook, right? You're somebody who is interested in the world beyond just your own borders. Maybe you're really interested in how your country, your culture, you know, its role in the world. So we're looking for, do you have a global outlook? You know, we look for students who are very eager to learn from each other. You know, we put great pride in the fact that we have a very diverse community. We've got, I think, close to 65 countries represented at DKU now, with a very good number of Kazakh students, which I'm very, very happy about. You know, we want students to learn from each other. You know, you came to an international university in an international location, studying primarily in China, but you also get to study in the US at Duke. And so, you know, you're there because you want to be prepared to be successful and in a global environment. You want to work in an international environment. Even when people live in their own countries, it's very hard not to work globally in some way. You know, whether you're on team calls with people working in different countries, you're reading about things happening in different parts of the world related to your industry or sector or whatever you're involved in. You know, in today's world, it's so small, it's virtually impossible not to be working in a global way. And so we're looking for that global outlook. We're looking for that eager to learn from each other, because when you're learning from people who are coming from other parts of the world, you're starting to understand how culture impacts, you know, why people think the way they do, behave the way they do, make the decisions the way they do, look at different global issues and topics differently. And all of this, again, you know, learning from each other is in that spirit of preparing you to be an impactful global citizen, which is our mission. We're looking for, you know, students who want to be engaged, right? So students who want to get involved, not just in the classroom. They're not just going to focus on academics, but they're also going to get involved outside the classroom. So we're going to ask questions around, you know, what are you most excited to get involved in outside the classroom? And going back to being able to demonstrate your knowledge of the university, talk about the specific things that you're going to get involved in. Again, the more you can provide those details, the more it allows you to talk about things you care about, and really demonstrate your knowledge of that university. So we put value on, what are you going to get engaged in, getting engaged outside the classroom, including just having fun. You know, that's a big part of the college experience, and getting out and exploring, which is another quality we look for. We look for students who, you know, have that curiosity, and all universities are looking for this, right? We want curious students who are eager to learn and seize opportunities. And we just take it a little bit of a step further. You know, we want you to be curious, and adventurous, and we want you to take advantage of the 4 years and, you know, travel around China. When you're in the US, maybe travel a little around the US, you know, exploring, literally exploring, just like we want you to explore as a student. You know, we're a liberal arts university. You've probably heard about liberal arts universities more and more these days. Liberal arts universities like mine, we don't even require you to have a major when you apply. You can let us know what you're interested in, of course, but, you know, at a liberal arts university, we want you to come in and explore, and maybe you'll discover that you have a great interest in an area you've never tried before. That's kind of at the nature, the core of a liberal arts education, is this opportunity to discover new things, discover new interests, discover new passions. And I'll be, you know, again, being candid, you know, in a liberal arts environment, more than half the students will change their mind about what they want to do because they've never had a chance to try different things. And now they're discovering new passions and interests. Language proficiency, as we already talked about, you know, we are making sure that you have language skills that are at the right level so that you're not going to struggle. The last thing any university wants, especially a university like ours, I say that there are some universities who have an expectation that they're going to lose a certain percentage of freshman students. It's built into their model. They know that there's going to be a certain percentage of students who are just not going to make it past their freshman year. And that can be for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons is they weren't academically successful. Well, at DKU, and I think many universities, we don't operate that way. We want to see you be successful. It doesn't do us any good, and it doesn't do you any good for you to start and then flunk out, as they say, you know, not be able to do the work. So we want to make sure that you have the language proficiency to be able to be successful, to communicate, to listen, and learn and have fun. I talked about interest a lot already. We get to measure your interest. And for DKU, that's really important to us because we want to make sure that students who are applying to DKU, they do have a sincere interest. Because we do have a very unique learning culture and community. And once our students, once we do send out offers, you know, one of our best resources to help our admitted students know if DKU is the right place for them, it's our current students. Our current students reflect our culture and our community. And, you know, when you get admitted to to DKU, you're immediately going to be engaged with that community through WhatsApp groups, through panels, through all kinds of social media outlets, and you're going to start to get a real feel for that university and our university. And so the students who eventually do accept that offer, it's because they want to be a part of that unique culture and community. So we want to make sure that you've got a genuine interest in what the university has to offer, that it is a good fit for you in terms of curriculum, in terms of opportunities, you know, to help you, you know, achieve whatever those personal goals are. And then once we admit you, you'll make that decision if it's the right culture fit just by engaging with our broader student community. And then for DKU, you know, we also want to be able to answer your questions. You know, we seize the opportunity for the interview to give you some additional insight into DKU. So, you know, if you start talking about a passion or an interest, and maybe you haven't discovered the opportunity at DKU to really continue that, you know, I'm going to tell you about it. I'm going to tell you a way that you can continue it to hopefully get you more excited. I mean, just like you're trying to get the university excited about you, many universities are also seizing this opportunity to get you more excited about the university. So that's why we do allow always time to ask one or two questions at the end for you as the applicant. And, you know, I'm a big, my staff hears me say this a lot, is I'm a big benefits to features guy. And what that means is you may bring up a feature, you may bring up, or I may bring up a feature about the university, but then once I've kind of gotten to know you and what your interests are, your passions, your learning style, I'm going to customize that feature and tell you how directly it benefits you. And in that way, I'm hoping to help you see how DKU might be really great for you. And so, you know, it kind of is part of that very personalized approach we take at DKU to the entire admissions process. We want to get to know you. We want you to understand why DKU can be a great experience for you if we believe it can be. And then again, it's just assessing fit. Fit is so important to us. I know I keep talking about this because our learning culture and community is so unique. We need highly engaged students. We need, you know, who want to get involved in the entire experience. We need students who are, you know, who are not going to not speak up in class. We need students in our discussion-based classroom to not be afraid to speak up in class. We need you to be able to speak up in class. Doesn't mean you need to be this huge extrovert. We got plenty of what people would consider themselves shy, but they have an opinion, they have a perspective, and they are able and willing and want to contribute it. So they want to learn from each other. They want to share their perspective. So there's certain qualities that we really look for. Having this interview just gives us one more opportunity to assess that this is a good two-way fit. All right, next slide. All right, so it looks like I went over a lot of this already. What are the qualities? I talked about global outlook. I talked about, you know, adventurous spirit. What do I mean by adventurous spirit? I mean, just the fact that you're applying to a university that's primarily in China, that gives us a good sense that you've got an adventurous spirit. But I'll also add, you know, just an aside, your parents have to have a bit of an adventurous spirit too. And so that's sometimes why while I'll ask the question in an interview, so what do your parents think about you, studying in China or going anywhere in the world? You know, an interest in China and or Asia, I mean, that's important. It's not critical. It's more global outlook, right? You just have an interest in the world. Now, you can say why studying in China could be valuable or in Asia could be valuable. You can also highlight why having the opportunity to study in China and the US, two of the most impactful economies in the world, is appealing to you. You know, but just, you know, it kind of, those first three go hand in hand: global outlook, adventurous spirit, interest beyond your borders, I would almost say. But certainly if if you can articulate quite clearly why China, that just allows you to demonstrate greater interest specifically in DKU. So desire to have an impact. This is something that's really important to us. I don't think I touched on it earlier. And so, you know, you learned about some of Temirlan's interests and the tree planting. And this is somebody, you know, he has a desire to have an impact. The students who come to DKU, they want to have an impact in some way. Some of them don't know exactly how they, you know, are going to have that impact in their lives and in their careers, but it's inside them. And we've been able to see it through their application, and we may learn more about it through the interview as well. You know, you heard me talk about the next two: eager to share your perspective and eager to learn from others. Just so important, because this is how you start to understand how people and why people think differently. And if you're going to be successful in a global environment, you're going to have that skill. You're also going to be able to adapt to different people who have different work styles, different points of views, different perspectives, you know, again, different working styles. You will be able to adapt to those because you appreciate this type of a learning environment and this way of learning. We look for students because of that, working with each other, who appreciate working in teams. And so it's not uncommon for us to ask some team related questions. What do you think is the benefit of working on a diverse team? What is something that you learned from somebody else that you thought was very valuable when you were working on a team? So we may ask you some questions related to teams to see how much you enjoy and value working in a team environment. Because frankly speaking, when you go off into your first job out of college, out of university, the way that you're going to have the greatest impact on that organization is to be a great team player. Somebody who appreciates working with other people, knows how to work with people who are different from them. And so, you've got these types of abilities already, or an appreciation. We're just going to take them to the next level in an international environment, which is going to prepare you to excel in that first job. And leadership potential. Now, this doesn't mean you have to have led everything in your life as a student, as a high school student. But, you've had some opportunity maybe to lead something, or lead some organization, or lead part of an organization. If you've attended some of my other presentations, you've probably heard me say that one of my favorite questions to ask, and I think I asked a version of it to Temirlan, is, tell me about a leader you admire and what it is you admire about them. I want to hear what kind of leader you admire. And that to me is gives me good insight into the qualities of a leader that you appreciate, which gives me insight into maybe the type of leader that you aspire to be. And then again, I think I've talked about this a lot. Overall, we're assessing your level of interest as reflected in your knowledge. Your level of interest is demonstrated in your knowledge of DKU, its unique features, learning, culture, and community. You just know stuff. You know about clubs, you know about organizations, you know about a particular major, you know about a faculty, who's teaching in a particular area. You've done your homework, and it doesn't take that long. Just go to the university's website and do a little digging. Hopefully you did it when you were deciding to apply to that university. If they had a school-specific essay, as DKU does, you hopefully highlighted some unique features, distinctive features of that university, but just go do some homework. Like Temirlan said, be prepared, so don't just know your own application, know the university, know the details, which will make it really easy for you to connect your application, your story, to the university story. All right, next slide, please. So we take a pretty unique approach, and this year in particular, we got a lot of feedback from our admitted students, and even some of the admitted, those who enrolled, even some of those who didn't enroll, that we learned that our interview approach is pretty unique. It's very friendly, it's very conversational, and for us, it really just reflects our community and our approach to the application process. As Roshan has told me several times, I tend to be very candid, and approachable. And I want you guys to know, for my university, what type of university we are. I want you to know what type of applicants we look for. I want you to know how to put together a good application. You still have to go do all the work, but we take a very, very personal approach to the entire application process. And we want to see you be successful. Everything I do and share is to hopefully help you either, one, get more interested, want to learn more, want to be motivated to learn more, or two, help you realize that DKU is not the right place for you. So your goal is to find the university where you can have a great experience, and there are many universities, more than one, I promise you, where you can have a great experience. So our personal approach, we want you to make sure you apply to us, and if you decide to come to us, it's because we are an ideal fit for you. So that's why we're so transparent, and that's why we give you so much information. And we never forget that this is about people. This is not a numbers game. This is not a, we don't get excited about, big, I don't fall in love with an applicant because they have a big SAT or ACT score. We get excited about people. We get excited about applicants. And so we want you to be who you are, and we want to get to know you as a person. So, our unique conversational interview approach, it reflects our community, our personal approach to the entire application process. Also, hopefully it makes for a more relaxing experience for you. We want the interview, and this is one of the pieces of feedback we got, is many applicants really, were over and above this year about just how different the interview with my team was, and that it was a nice experience. It was very conversational. But I'm also going to let you in on a little secret. When we get you relaxed and conversational, that's when your guard drops, and that's when you are really who you are. And that's what we want, but what that means is sometimes a student or an applicant might get a little too relaxed. So that's what, maybe they'll use a inappropriate language or tell an inappropriate story. So that's always been, my approach going back to my MBA days when I did interviews for a Duke's MBA program. I want to get people comfortable so they can drop their guard, and it's easier to see if red flags are going to pop up when somebody's really comfortable. So yes, it does reflect our style. It reflects our community, but it also, the side of that you have to be a little cautious about is don't get so relaxed or too relaxed that you might say something inappropriate. Remember, you're still in an interview, but we want it to be a nice conversation. And so what if the applicant is nervous? Will it hurt their chances? I know I got that question a lot. I think that was one of the pre-questions for a session we did earlier. We know that many applicants are going to be nervous in the interview. Again, that's why, my team, myself, that first question that I asked Temirlan, how'd you hear about DKU? Could there be an easier question? Hopefully that's a pretty easy question for you. We start with one or two, especially if we can see that you're nervous, and we can see when someone's nervous. We go out of our way to try to get you to relax because we want you to be the best you can be. We will ask really easy questions up front, especially the first question, maybe the second question if we see you continue to be nervous, just to make it really easy for you so you can get comfortable quicker. My team, we smile a lot. We want you to see that we're not here looking for reasons not to admit you. We're interviewing you looking for reasons to admit you. We just want to, corroborate, assess some of the things we need to assess, and corroborate that you are that person in the application. And we want to get excited about you. So what if you struggle and just are nervous the whole time? More often than not, there'll just be a little comment in, the interviewer will write, candidate was really nervous. And that's okay, right? That happens. It's expected. We're humans. We're going to be more focused on your answers. We're going to be much more focused on your answers than how nervous you were. Now, if you're so nervous that it's making it difficult for you to answer questions, and we're not getting the information that we need, that it's not something you can overcome it, but it's not going to be your best interview. So, even if you're nervous, know that that's okay. Know that it's okay to be nervous, but try to at least answer the questions, address the questions. And it's okay to even say, forgive me, I'm really nervous. It's okay to say that. All right. We're going to know it, but it's okay to say that. But just do your best to at least answer the questions, even if you're nervous, because we're going to focus more on the content than we are on the fact that you're nervous. All right. Next slide, please. All right. So what about other universities? So, every university you apply to, you need to make sure you understand what their application and admission requirements are. And you cannot assume because one university has certain policies that the other university or other universities are going to have the same policy. So it's always a case of, just like researching the university, you research their admissions policies, and you'll see that not all universities interview. You will see that not all universities interview all candidates. You will see that not all not all universities interview everybody they admit. So, it'll be different from university to university. And you will also learn that not only admissions representatives are the ones who do the interviews. You can have, alumni interviews are pretty common. And you may even have some students who do interviews. You may have faculty who are doing some interviews, or other staff who are doing interviews outside the admissions office. And I'll also do a quick another PSA here, another little plug. And this just allows you to, again, differentiate yourself a little more, and bring your level of sophistication and professionalism up. If you find out who your interviewer is before the interviewer, like in my office, all applicants know who their interviewer is before the interview. Go do some homework on that person. Go to their LinkedIn profile. Learn a little bit about them. Temirlan noted that I have a degree in psychology. That was a topic he wanted to talk about. I don't recall if he did his homework and saw that and did my LinkedIn profile, or if he just learned that after the fact. But that'd be cool to know, right? Cool to know that that your interviewer has a similar background or a similar interest to you, and then you can bring that up. And that's just that demonstrates that you really do your homework, that you get prepared. So you can do a little bit of homework on your interviewer, because it's something else I always talk about. Everything you do in the admissions process, in the application process, is designed to increase your chances of getting in, right? Every little thing that you do, hopefully, increases your chances to get in. So I follow a lot of these little nuggets, these little tips, as just one additional thing you can do that might help you get in. And there might be some interviewers that get really impressed by an applicant who demonstrates a higher level of sophistication in this process, and goes to their LinkedIn profile, learns something about them, then brings a really meaningful question to the interview related to that the interviewer can answer, very specific to their background. You might have an interviewer who really loves that, so maybe those bonus points are even bigger. So all of these kinds of nuggets are in that spirit of just increasing your chances of getting admitted. So, what is being assessed depending on who's interviewing you, these are just kind of general, not always, this might not be 100%, detailed, specific, but, you can know that if you're being interviewed by an admissions officer and alumni, they're going to be curious about your level of interest. Admissions officers, because, especially with some universities, they want to admit people who have a higher chance of accepting the offer, right? Who they believe that if they accept the offer, that student is pretty serious about the university. Not a guarantee, but the more the more interest you demonstrate, the greater the chances that university thinks you really want to be there. Again, increasing your chances maybe of getting admitted. And alumni, alumni are proud of their universities. They want you to want their university. So they're going to be interested. Why do you want to come to my university? And so being ready for those types of questions. And again, demonstrating your interest just by the knowledge that you have. You did your homework. English, definitely admissions officer and alumni. Again, they want to see you be successful. Filling in gaps, typically when an alum is doing interviews, all they're going to get is a basic profile sheet of some sort. They may get very limited information related to your actual application. So it's, they're not really in many cases filling gaps. For them, it's much more around conversation, likability, and fit. There's somebody, that alumni are looking at you thinking, okay, this is somebody who's going to be a member of my community. This is somebody who's going to be wearing my my color, my brand, my university brand. And they want to make sure that you're going to reflect their brand in a positive way. So that, alumni are really going to be looking more at things like that: fit, likability, in addition to the level of interest, which obviously always gets connected to fit. All right, I think we can probably go to the next slide there. All right. So applicants' responsibilities. I've already touched on this: understanding every university that you apply to, understanding what their admissions policies are, and that includes their interview policy. Making sure that you know what the time frame is for when interviews are conducted, and you are, so that way that make sure you're available. If they're going to extend interviews, you want to seize that opportunity, especially if it's required. If they offer it, make sure that you're going to be able to have that interview in the time period that they indicate. So knowing what their policy is, just being prepared. Temirlan talked about this great early on. Know your application, reread your application, know your story, be who you are, right? It's so much easier to tell your story and be that person in your application if it starts with an honest application, an authentic application. Let those passions that you have, those interests, let them really come through in the application, and then hang your hat on those. That's who you are. That's what you're passionate about. And just continue that story. Dressing appropriately, make sure that, you recognize this is an interview. You don't have to dress up in a suit or, fine wear, but just, dress like your parents would expect you to dress for something like this. So I'm very careful about telling women what to wear, but for a man, a nice collared shirt is sufficient. That's really all we're going to see in the video interview, is what you're seeing on me right now, which is just a nice collared shirt. That is absolutely appropriate. No hats. I'd avoid a hoodie. Dress just a little bit more, a little bit nicer, like you're going out to dinner with, a nice dinner with family or something, where you want to look a little bit nicer. Make sure you can get a good connection. Kind of going back to the nervous thing, given that we attract students from all around the world, and some countries obviously have different levels of connectivity and good connections. We know that it's not a student's fault if they have, they're in a place where the connection is just not consistent. But do your best, just for your own sake, for your own nerves. Try to get the best connection you can. And if that means, I've had students who have set up interviews because, we interview 24 hours, because I've got a team in China, I've got a team in the US, and all of us are doing interviews. So people can pretty much pick a time that, that they want to interview. I've had some students who will interview at 2 a.m. because that's the best time. They said that they have the best connection. So, just do your best to get that good connection. But if you do have technical issues, again, that's something we'll note. We're like, yeah, and we're not going to ding you for it. You don't have to worry about it. I feel like getting that good connection, while we want you to have it so we can have an easier conversation with you, you're not going to get dinged for it if your connection is struggling for whatever reason. But I know that applicants get really stressed out when their connection is bad. So it's really more for you to get a good connection so that you don't have to worry about that and you don't get stressed about that. Show up on time. And I'm just going to say that's a golden rule for the rest of your life. Show up on time. Be prepared, but show up on time for the interview. These time blocks are small. So make sure that you are ready to go. 5-10 minutes, everything's set up. You've got everything you need, and that you're ready to go once that clock hits the interview time. Be there. But that's just a good rule. Like, show up and show up on time. And then just try to relax. have a good conversation. If you have a good connection, certainly makes it easier. You don't have distractions. Find a good place for the interview so you don't have people walking around you, distracting you, so you can really stay focused. If you've got one of those, here's a little tip. If depending on if it's sometimes if you're interviewing on Skype, I know a lot Zoom's very popular lately, but there are other ways that you can interview, and keep in mind where the camera is on your laptop. Okay. So that you can look into the camera. And one way I do that sometimes is I will, if I've got just a little picture of the person, I will move it up and I can move it around on my screen. I will move it up right underneath the camera. So that way I'm looking at them, but it also looks like I'm looking directly at the camera. Because with so much Zoom these days, it's kind of easy to not always have eye contact, especially if I'm looking down over here in this corner, because that's where the person is. And, again, it's one of those little things. If you can make it look like you're maintaining direct eye contact with that interviewer virtually the entire time, again, it's just a little bit of an increased chance there. Just one of those little things. And then again, if you really want to demonstrate that you have a higher level of sophistication as a young person, a little bit higher level of professionalism, send a thank you note. Again, life lesson. Show up on time and send thank you notes. It's good relationship management, right? And so just sending a short little email, just thanking the interviewer for the time, if it's an alum, if it's an admissions officer, whoever it is, just a short note. Doesn't have to be a long essay. I don't want to read a long essay, but I do put value, and I appreciate when a student takes time to write a 3 or 4 line thank you note, thanking me for the time that I spent with the interview, letting me know they appreciated that it was a conversation, that they felt relaxed, and maybe highlight one thing you learned from the interviewer, right? And, I really appreciated when you talked about so-and-so. And that's just one more reason why I'm so interested in becoming a member of the Duke Kunshan community. So sending a little short thank you note, again, it's just it's becoming a lost art, but it's a good habit to get into. Yeah, that's good. That's right. That's good. Roshan just mentioned if admitted, send a note too, especially if that interviewer was an alum or something like that. So they might not have been involved in the admission decision, letting them know that, hey, I'm so excited. Thank you. Now, my team, the interviewers, are very quick to send those, congratulations. But that's a great tip, Roshan, to in that spirit of relationship management, let that interviewer know, hey, I got in. Thanks for being a part of my journey. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Short and sweet. All right, next slide. Look at that. We're at question time. So I'll let Temirlan and Roshan kind of jump in, and I'm here to answer questions as needed. Okay, so does DKU have any online summer programs for future applicants? So when you say summer programs, we definitely have virtual campus visits that our current students are leading, which are really cool, live, interactive, virtual tours where they take you around campus using photos and answer your questions. We have those going. We have, and you can sign up for those. I don't know if I can put the link in there right now, but let me put my email in here. I'm going to put my email in the chat box. And anybody who's interested in following up with any questions or how to register for certain things, how to register for these virtual online campus tours. We also have virtual information sessions. I'm sure I'll be doing one for you guys in the not too far off future. We have those types of activities going on right now. why I'm kind of, so I don't know what you're looking, I don't know what ranking you're looking at, but I'm surprised DKU is even ranked, given we haven't graduated a class yet. So maybe that's why we're ranked so low. I don't know what ranking that is, but we're graduating our first class this coming year, and I know that plays a big role in the ranking. So we'll I think we'll probably move up, but yeah, I'm curious. Send me an email. Send me the link to that ranking. I'd love to see it. So what are the leadership qualities that universities are looking for? Interesting question. You know, I talk a lot about the what in an application and then the hows and whys behind the what. So the what, for example, is I was a leader of a club. Okay. So that tells us that you have leadership experience. But what we're really going to be interested in is, what did you learn about yourself as a leader? You know, how did you overcome any challenges that you faced? So that's going to give us more insight into the qualities that you appreciate, you know, about, or what you've learned in terms of being a leader, and you know, how you've evolved as a leader. But I think some of the, you know, some of the qualities that I put a lot of value on in leadership is, one, collaborative leadership. You hear a lot about collaborative leadership in a corporate environment, in business world. And what that means is, you know, and I'll use as an example, and you heard me talking about teams earlier, and how the best way for you to have an impact on an organization, you know, in your first job is to be a great team player, work well with others. Even if you become the CEO of a company, you are still a member of a leadership team. You have the CEO, you have the CFO, the chief marketing officer, you have the CMO, the chief marketing, you have the CFO, financial officer, CMO, marketing officer, CIO, information officer. So you have all these very senior people who have deep knowledge and experience in a particular area, who come together and lead an organization. So really understanding as a leader that other people are going to bring great perspectives in, different knowledge that you may not have, and making sure that everybody's voices are heard, that you recognize that you can't do it by yourself, that by having more perspectives, more experiences, more knowledge, the more you have that around you, the better leader it's going to make you, and the better that you're going to be able to lead that organization, that club, or whatever. So collaborative leadership, making sure everybody's voices are heard, knowing, you know, being a leader, and I'm going to get a little more higher level of sophistication. You know, a leader typically has the big picture view, but good leaders also are able to get down in the trenches, you know, and can roll their sleeves up and do the work as well, not just guide and lead, but also do the work, be a part of that. You know, and if we're talking again, getting into that more corporate environment, you know, more ethical is important, but recognizing the triple bottom line, right? You've got, you know, you've obviously got your responsibilities to the company or the stakeholders, the shareholders. You've got a responsibility to your employees, right? So the first one is making money. The second one is, you know, the people who are working for you that allow the company to function. But then the third one, which is becoming more relevant these days, is to the broader community. How are you impacting and bringing value to the broader community? So it's that triple bottom line. So these are just some examples of what makes a good leader. I think that there's definitely a lot you can read online about, you know, leadership and leadership styles, but those are the kinds of things that, you know, given my background, which you guys probably don't know, I worked at the business school at Duke for 11 years in their MBA program, which is the elite business program. And these are a lot of the things that corporate recruiters and business schools, they talk about these types of things. Is there internships for high school students? I mean, so, you know, can you get an internship right now? I mean, I know they exist. Sometimes they might not be called an internship. Maybe it's called a job, but what you're doing, regardless of what it's called, you're going to have an opportunity, if it's important to you, to talk about it in your application. You can list it under those extracurricular activities because they can include things like internships, work. So yeah, there are internships, work, volunteering, all those things. And, again, if you're going to tell us that you did it, we're going to be curious why you did it. That's one of those questions we like to see answered. If you're putting your time and energy into something, especially if it is something that's really important to you, we'll hopefully get to learn more about it, both through the application and ultimately the interview. So how much does the interview weigh in terms of the application process? That's just such a big, it depends. So many questions when you ask about percentages and chances and all that. It's just an it depends. What I will say about the interview is more often than not, an interview. So let me put it this way. It's rare that one thing in your application will get you into a university. Okay, it's really truly a holistic process. We're going to be looking at the qualitative sides of your application, the essays, the recs, the extracurricular activities, maybe some achievements. And we're going to look at the quantitative side, right? That's your data points, that's your GPA, that's your test scores. We're going to look at all of those things. And rarely is just one of those things going to get you into college. But one thing can get you a ding, right? And so the interview kind of falls under that bucket, right? When I say one thing, maybe you write something inappropriate in your application. Maybe you decide to use some cuss words, some language that is not good in an essay. These are some things that will immediately, some admissions officers or application readers will just be offended by it, or just more likely they'll just say poor self-awareness. This student did not use good judgment, and that's not something that any school likes to see. Maybe your GPA is really low. Maybe your SAT is really low. And some schools, even though they may not say they have minimums, they may have informal minimums, unspoken minimums. So those are examples of that one thing that could keep you from getting admitted. Interview kind of falls under that, I think. If you have a bad interview, and again, do something inappropriate, or your language skills aren't there, that could be enough to get you out. But more often than not, the interview is not going, rarely, in fact, in our experience at DKU, will the interview play a role in you not getting admitted. More often than not, the interview, especially when we get to that point, because we've already vetted you, we've already seen that you're a good fit by how much you shared in the application. So in most cases, the interview is just kind of it's the icing on the cake. It just confirms things for us. Yeah, good job, Roshan. I like that. Everyone's voice should be heard. Yeah. Great. How to show on essays that international community and diversity is important for you. So international community, it kind of goes back to what Roshan just echoed, and that is international community is about different perspectives. What's the value of diversity? What's the value of an international community? The value is that you're going to develop skills that are going to allow you to be, to succeed in any type of environment. And so, you don't have to have ever traveled internationally to be somebody who demonstrates that they have a global outlook, that they value people who bring different perspectives, that they want to learn about the world around them. It's really more about, why do you think it's important to you? When we talked about global outlook, many of our students have never left their home country. Some have hardly ventured out of their hometown, but they're looking beyond their borders, and they can tell us why. Right? Again, it's the why behind so much in your application that really makes it compelling, that really gives us the insight into who you are as a person. So it's really not just going to be your essays. It's going to be the types of activities that you were involved in. Obviously we see a lot of students who model UN. I can't tell you how many students from around the world, that's something they've participated in. Is it a requirement for us? Absolutely not. But it is one, given the type of student we attract who are eager to learn about other perspectives and put themselves in other people's shoes so that they can have a better understanding of how somebody else thinks, makes sense that Model UN, which I'm assuming most of you have heard of, is a popular organization that many of our high school applicants take part in, and it's a big club at DKU. I know a lot of you are competing in different Olympiads and having opportunities to compete with students from other countries. So maybe, I tell counselors when I'm telling them the types of qualities we look for and how they might identify them, that student who goes off and competes in an Olympiad, they come back and they're so energized and excited because they had an opportunity to hang out with people who were different from them, from a different country. That means, that's a good reflection. That's a good way for you to let us know that you really appreciate that. And so, how to show in essays that an international community and diversity is important to you. I think that, again, diversity, why is that important to you? I can tell you why it's important to us. And since, if you're applying to DKU, you're probably going to want to hit those high points, right? Show that you're in alignment with us. Diversity is important to us because you now start to understand that having different perspectives is important. And you hear this term critical thinking a lot. We all want to see that, students who are applying have critical thinking skills, appreciate the skills it takes to be a critical thinker. And then when they get into a diverse international university environment, again, it just takes your skills and abilities to another level, ability to think critically. And some of that basically is that, that to find the answer to a complex problem, you can't just rely on one resource. You have your own experience, your own knowledge, and your pursuit of that knowledge, maybe through different books and resources, but you also hear other people's perspectives who are going to look at that problem from a different angle. And then you're going to make your final recommendation or solution based on taking in all those perspectives and thinking about them to come up with your own solution. And so that's, that's something that we put a lot of value on. Critical thinking skills, diversity of perspective, because we want you to recognize that there's lots of different ways to look at a challenge or an issue, particularly in this, this increasingly interconnected world, which was so reflected, as we've all seen, by the recent pandemic, right? Boy, did that really give us an up close look at just how connected the entire world is, and how easily it can be impacted. All right, let's see. I think I don't see any more new questions. Did I miss any, Rashan?
I think you actually answered all the questions.
Great. And we even have a few people who stayed till the end.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know if anybody else has anything to say. I just say thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity, and thank you to Temirlan. We got to do this twice. So exciting. I feel like we've become experts now, and you've got my email. I put it in the chat box. If anybody has any questions for me related in general, or certainly about DKU, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am always excited to talk to you. Best part of my job is getting you, getting an opportunity to meet you, be a part of your journey, whether it brings you to DKU or not. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you a lot for your time, and thank you for doing this amazing presentation. I always learn something new, and I always take notes.
Well, it's always my pleasure. You and I are a good team.
So I'll also send my email if you want to contact me. I will help you to maybe speak about your essay or have a feedback about your application process. I will help you every time if you want. So.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, actually, mock interviews, do some practice interviews. You can always do that. So reach out to some of these students who've been so successful and say, hey, can I do a mock interview with you? I'm sure a lot of them got a lot of help as well. And, that's a great way to do some practice. All right, everybody, take care. Good luck.
I already send it, Kainar. This, I will resend it again. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.